Welcome to the shop here in beautiful Canterbury with the camera lady, and I'm Tom McLaughlin for Epic Woodworking. Glad to have you here. I want to talk about a topic that probably all of us have experienced frustration with, the ubiquitous wobbly chair. All right, so you get in the chair, you know what it is. Maybe it's that chair that you don't let the company sit in. You come over and go, oh, no, not that chair. Let's get this one over here. We all have had experiences like that from time to time. And it can be frustrating and a real hassle to fix chairs. Now, there's lots of variety, and I'm not actually going to fix an entire chair right now. In fact, I'm just going to give you a few of the most core points about fixing chairs that I have found useful. I have repaired a lot of chairs and I've seen a lot of crazy ways. Do you know, I've seen wire wrapped around the joint. I've seen nails and screws run in. That's usually the first thing I think people run to grab is the screws or nails. And then there's, of course, trying to just squish epoxy in there. I bought into that stuff early on. And then it wasn't until I was hanging out with Pugmore and saw how they repaired chairs. You know, they used to take in a lot of repairs. And I have taken a lot in over the years to supplement our income. But sometimes it's not worth it because they're a hassle. But let me give you some tips and pointers on this old rocker right here. Some of you have already seen this rocker. We shared taking out this slat in the back. It's just a little ladder back child's rocker, and it's probably early 1800s. I'm going to show you the old way and then a newer joint you're probably going to stumble on. But I find this so interesting. I'm going to use it to show you the first part of the experience. This chair is dry fitted, and so it actually used the old clever way that they used to join this type of chair. They would drill the holes with a hand boring bit, and then the legs would be quite high moisture content, about 20-25% moisture content. So they would use green wood for this and turn the legs. They'd be quite wet. And then they'd drill the holes, and then they would make the rails, and then they would dry the rails dead bone dry, get them down to like 5-6% moisture, either by sticking the ends in sand, hot sand, or putting it in a hot box and working that out. Then they would assemble, and what would happen? The leg would lose its high moisture content and would actually shrink. And so does the mortise. And it actually shrinks around that tenon. And the tenon, being so bone dry when it was fitted, actually slightly expands a little. And that whole joint is held together simply by the forces of the moisture leaving the leg and the moisture coming back a little bit into the rail. Now, where did I learn that? Well, I've heard it a lot of places, but I never heard it better explained than in Russ Philbeck's book. I got to give Russ another shout out. This book is really awesome. I hope if you're interested in this type of chair, this is a great book because he gets into steam bending, which we talked about recently. But he went into what I just talked about, just understanding wood in that clever way. Here it is here. So you're seeing the wood grain, the growth rings here. The wood expands and contracts mostly across or along the growth rings. So this is going to expand and contract at roughly twice the rate of the tangential movement, okay? So these are the growth rings, those little pores. Those are the medullary rays, those little lines there. So here you can see, again, there's the grain. Now here's a hole bored while it was wet, and then it shrunk, and look at, it's oval shape now. So it's narrower because it shrunk this dimension twice as much as it did this way, okay? So that's ideal, and they would try to position them that way for the ideal shrink. But when you're at the corners of a chair like this, you share it, and you kind of put the grain diagonally, and you'll share that kind of shrinkage around the tenon. Look at here, you can see it again. This one has like a bulbous end, and they just jam it in there, and when that shrinks around, it is locked on. Now, this is kind of fun because this chair was assembled that way, and it's quite rickety. It's really loose, and it's all hand done. And we're going to take it apart. Now, I want to show you some modern methods for taking it apart. And this applies to almost every piece of furniture. Now, when you go to get it apart, you may have some loose joints looser than others. So you've got to like get those other joints loosened up. And the way you do it is you've got to try to soften the glue in the joint. So you're going to need some hot water, get some water boiling, and then if you have like a little eyedropper and you can get it up inside, like almost like a little baster, turkey baster, but use the eyedropper, take a little water, and then get it right into the joint. Let it flow in really hot and let it just sit. Then when you know it's soft, then you're ready to pull it apart. Now, that's assuming it's modern glues. You're probably dealing more with modern chairs. Usually these days you'll be dealing with a PVA glue. And so that's what I'm talking about. Get that hot water in there. It will soften up the PVA glues, okay? So you just got to get enough in, and then you can get it apart like I'm about to show you. If you happen to have an older chair that was put together with hide glue, that hot water will soften it up very fast because hide glue melts and reconstitutes with hot water. Once we've softened the joint or you have a piece open, now you want to get it apart. Now you could just take Mr. Mallet. If you knew it was close, you could just tap lightly and see what you get, right? A more civilized way is to use a clamp, but use it as a spreader. So this type of clamp is pretty clever. This is the EZS by Bessie. But you probably have seen these, and these are great for, they give a lot of pressure just as these quick grip like clamps. But check this out, it has this little feature over here where you just turn it counterclockwise, pull off the end, then you bring it to the other end and reverse it. You put it back on, and then clockwise you lock it back on. Now look what happens. Now when you clamp the handle, it moves and it actually works as a spreader. So you could put that right in between those pieces. Rather than smash them, we're gonna just put a little pressure on. Ooh, there it goes. It freed up a little bit there. Let me put one in the back. And I'll see if I can ease this apart. So this would be an easier way to do it. All right, this one in the back is just dry. I'm wondering if this chair has been apart in 200 years. Whoa, there it is. Woohoo! All right. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Wow. This is just proving it. Look at the ends of these tenons. This is more like an antique history lesson here. These are whittled. They are not turned. This proves, look at how they're oval shaped. So they're narrower this way. Look at them. They're all like that. It's crazy. But they're dry as a bone. Never had glue. All right, so I don't want to knock this all apart. I just wanted you to see that because I want to keep these in relation. I'm not ready to do this one yet, but this is crazy. I do want to finish restoring this. Just to catch you up on that, you maybe saw that episode on the steam bending. I did also make a little pattern of this slat for the back. So here's my bending pattern. It's a little more than the slat, assuming I'm going to have a little spring back. And then here's my here's my bending form that I made using this curve. Right there. And then I took a piece of maple, steamed it in our new steam box. Haven't seen that, you got to check out those recent episodes.
We'll put a link to them.
And I steamed this piece of maple, quarter sawn, pressed it on there, and look, it sprung back just about, not quite, almost a 1/4 inch on each end. And look at what happened. It's exactly the same. All right, so we're going to be able to replace that top slat with this guy here. So pretty excited to finish that up. All right, so let's say you get your chair apart and now you've got glue in there and you've got glue in your tenons. Here's where it's kind of a pain. But really, to get the integrity of the joint back, you want to get all that glue off. And that's where that hot water technique is key, right? Have that water really hot. You can stick a little rag in there, have like a rubber glove on or something. Get it wet, and then you can try to peel it off. If you got to hit it with some metal object, you got to be really careful with that because you don't want to remove too much wood, or then you'll have to replace stuff back. Same thing in the mortise. You're going to get some water in there, and try and remember what tool I used. If anybody has a tip on this, to scrape that out, I used to have something, but some kind of metal with a soft edge or even wood. You want to get the glue out of the joint, like most of it, right? On the sidewalls. You're trying to restore the integrity. Oh, I remember, once we got that out, then we would take a dowel, wrap it with sandpaper on the outside, and just, you know, it's a little smaller, and just twist it till you knew you were actually sanding wood. Now, after that, after cleaning off the tenon, after cleaning out the dowel, you're going to go to fit it back, and it's probably going to be a little loose, right? That's the issue. So you want to get that metal stuff. No, just kidding. You don't want to put metal in the joint. You're going to rebuild the tenon just with wood. It's really simple. And when you rebuild it with wood, you've got wood on wood, and then you'll have wood on wood again in the joint with glue, and you will have a really sound, excellent joint. Now, I'm only talking about round tenons right now because that's what we have in front of us. But you may be repairing an older piece that has true mortise and tenons. Not as likely, because those are much better wood joints. They don't fail nearly as much as these dowels. And manufacturing processes, you're going to see all kinds of floating tenons, dowels, right? Dowels are just floating tenons. They're round, and those are what fail probably more than anything else. And in that case, you might have to get creative. I know we had a question or comment come in at the beginning. I didn't get the whole gist of it, but you know, we have floating tenons. You might have to cut them off. You might have to rebuild the tenon, or just glue something in there and then remake the floating tenon to your heart's desire, right? So you'd be plugging both sides and then just plunge routing. That's a lot more work, right? But sometimes you have to go to those lengths. So it depends on your situation. But I'm going to set this beauty aside. I don't know why I like this chair so much. Let's say we've got a tenon. Once you've cleaned it all up and everything, I don't know, these are all pretty much the same 5/8. But here's a tenon on a round piece, and it goes in, and look, there it is. It's a little loose. That's after you've cleaned the glue off and everything. Now you want to thicken that tenon up. Everything's ready. So what are you going to do? Well, the easiest way is to just make a shaving. So I'm going to come over here, and I've got a piece of maple here. I like to use the same kind of wood if possible. If it's a very porous wood, I'll usually use something, you know, maple or poplar or whatever. I usually keep one of this plane pretty heavily set, sometimes just to do this. And I'm just going to get, let's see if I can get it. Okay, that's a good shaving. That's pretty thick. You can hear it. You want it pretty hefty, not too thick, but you could see how much play there was in that joint. Now this is solid wood. and it's going to give us the build we want. All we have to do is wrap it around the tenon. So let's get a little glue, and this is all you need to do. Just come up to the tenons after they're loose. You're just going to get some glue on the tenon. Sometimes people will say, you know, hey, what if I just put some gap filling epoxy in there? Well, you could, I guess, but I don't think that would be as good as this. Getting the wood back to the wood. But epoxy just seems so mean to the following people. What's going to happen when someone comes to fix it again? I mean, the nicest thing to do would be do it in hide glue, but it's tricky to use hide glue. You could use liquid hide glue, which is much easier to use. It's got that additive that keeps it liquid at room temperature.
I guess the hope is that it's not going to have to be repaired again, right?
Exactly. Not in your lifetime, right? But we used to always try to think about the person, even when I was building the furniture, you know, try to build it in such a way that, you know, another generation or two, or I think, well, everything we're making is probably going to be at least 4 or 5 generations before it'll need any attention, right?
That's amazing. True.
It really is. All right, so I'm wrapping this around, and I'm getting it really tight on there, and then I'm just going to finish it with a piece of tape. That's all I got to do. So this is pretty basic and fun. You can go all the way around if you want to put some pressure on it. It doesn't matter. I can feel it moving. That's fine. And then when you pull it out, you'll see where it broke, and we're going to cut it. So I'd set that aside. Now I got another one here. I don't have the whole thing, but this was a longer tenon, same exact size tenon. All right, so here's what happens. I pulled off the tape. This is another dowel, same size, kind of loose, right? And I built out this end. So let me just get a knife here. Try to find where it looks like I ended it right here. That's good. So you're going to need some sandpaper, because it's probably going to be, you want it to be just a little snug, or a little, I'm just going to clean off any glue. Okay. That's our new tenon. Looks fresh as a daisy. Let's see what happens. All right, that's nice. It's like really snug right now, but it is starting in. So I need to clean that off. It's sort of like painting, you know. It's the preparation, getting everything right. Then when it comes time to do it, it goes pretty fast. So this will glue up beautifully and get to that point. All right, that feels good. All right, that is a snug fit. Look at that. Solid as a rock in there. I could glue that in. That would stay forever. All right, so that's one way. That's to rebuild your dowels technique, right? I just want to show you one quick way that we've done. I've done probably way more than dowels, because we're always working with mortise and tenons here. This is the classic joint. So much superior because of all this surface, all this side grain that goes into the joint, and it's surrounded by side grain in there. So it fits, and you've got a beautiful fitting joint, just like that. Now, sometimes I make the tenons too small. You know, we make mistakes while we're building. But if you were repairing a piece and you took it apart, by the time you finished it, it would be like that round tenon. It'd be a little small, and you got to build out the tenon again. So whether you've made a mistake in the process, this is a nice simple fix and very similar in a way. Now look, I've made this one too small. I actually did it on purpose so you could see. But look, if I let this go and it just falls in like that, you know, there's like, that is too loose. You want to have to press it in. You want to feel some mechanical kind of rub while it's being pressed in, okay? So that one would have to be fixed. I wouldn't want to glue that up as is. It wouldn't really be enough wood against wood. So to do that, it's very similar, except this time I'll take a piece of cherry and let's throw that in the vise. And let me see if this one works. Sometimes a cherry can be fracturing. Yeah, that's good. Okay, perfect. Good shaving again. Now this time it's easier, I think. It goes on here and all I do is get a little glue on there. Oh wait, you know what? I want to try to fit this. So I would always just put on this glue and spread it on there thin, because I'm not usually in this much of a hurry. Then I put this on, and then I would just take a block. I've wrapped these with some shrink wrap. I have a bunch of these blocks, and I pop it on there, and then I just put a little spring clamp, you know, right on there. And that is enough pressure to hold that little piece of veneer or shaving on there and build it out. And that's really, you'd be amazed how good a fit you're going to get with just that. I just know from experience doing that type of looseness. So anyway, let me try this. I've never tried this before, just to see if we can make it go fast and test it. I've got some Instant Bond, Tight Bond CA glue. I've got the medium. I'm going to just put this on, and then we'll spray it from the outside with our quick hit. See if it dries immediately, like they say. This is more expensive glue. It doesn't actually have quite the bond strength as the regular PVA, but I mean, it's pretty good. I know I don't use it as much as some people I know, but wood turners like it, I think, probably more than most. All right, so once we get that on there, now we're going to just lay the shaving on there. I'm going to put this on here just for a second and press it. Let's count to 10. Boys and girls. Why don't you just sing a little song for us, Cam Lady?
That's sure to shut down the likes.
Kidding me? All right. Hey, speaking of likes, if you like this content, why
To
not
fill all the minutes.
subscribe? Subscribe first and foremost. Tell a friend and like and share and
Tell your
comment.
friends, yes.
All right.
Ready?
I'm going to take this. Oh, let's get this ready. This may be a mess. Yeah, it is.
Didn't work.
Well, I want to just get enough tack so I can spray it from the outside. It'll work if you just hold it there, but let's do this. I could have sprayed one side of this. Now it's going to be... Let's see if I can do this. Just get a little tack this way. My block on my finger. Okay, that felt like it worked.
Nice.
That feels dry now. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy glue. All right.
Instant.
So this would be similar to what you do. You just cut it off after the regular glue dried. And Let's give it a try. Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Look at that. That went in just like you want it. See how it's taking a little bit of pressure? You know, if they're a little tight, what I usually do is just, when they're this close to perfect, like it's just a little on the tiny bit snug, you can just wrap anything with a piece of, I got 150 here. I'm gonna hold it down. Very light. That's all you're gonna do. Sand to fit. There it is. So when you put glue in here, you would rebuild that tenon. Again, it's wood on wood, re-glue it, peg it, and that repair is gonna last generations.
Now this technically is a table leg.
Yeah, but that
But
would be also
same
what
impact for a
yeah,
chair.
chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most 18th century chairs and later, early 19th, mid, you know, you're going to see still a lot of mortise and tenon chairs and older chairs there. But then they're going to shift over to mass production. You're going to start seeing a lot of dowels. So I just wanted to see that technique. If you have a thin or loose tenon, or you're just cleaning up a piece and wanting to repair. So whether you got an old chair like this old beauty or a dowel piece like that, the key is to clean out those joints, get that fresh wood on wood snug fit, and glue it up, and you can rest easy. That'll stay a good long time. All right, everyone, thank you so much once again for hanging out with us. Love opening the shop to you and
Yes.
spending some time together.
No fun for us.
Hey, we look forward to seeing you next time. On behalf of the camera lady and myself, we'll see you next week right back here on Shop Night Live.
Oh gosh.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.